Have you ever been treated like you don't belong, just because you're poor? In a university where money decided who mattered, one poor girl dared to be smart. They bullied her, humiliated her, and tried to destroy her future. What happened when the most admired rich guy chose her? Shocked the entire university. Westbridge University was not a place where anyone pretended that money did not matter. From the moment you stepped through its wide glass gates, wealth announced itself loudly. Expensive cars rolled into the parking lot every morning. Students walked past one another wearing designer clothes, talking about holidays abroad, family businesses, and plans that stretched far beyond graduation. For most people at Westbridge, university life was not a struggle, it was a continuation of comfort. But for Emily Walker, it was a battlefield. Emily stood at the entrance of the Faculty of Science building that first morning with her backpack held tightly against her chest. The strap had been sewn twice already, and she prayed it would survive another semester. She took a deep breath before walking inside, reminding herself of the promise she had made to her mother. I will not fail. I will not waste this chance. Emily was a full scholarship student in the Department of Economics, one of the most competitive departments in the university. She had earned her place through pure brilliance, top grades, national academic awards, and a recommendation that described her as exceptionally gifted and disciplined. But none of that showed on the surface. Her clothes were simple. Her phone was old. Her shoes were neat but clearly worn. At Westbridge, those things were noticed immediately. As Emily walked into the lecture hall, conversations continued loudly. Groups of students laughed and compared notes from last night's party. No one moved aside for her. She scanned the room, found an empty seat near the back, and sat quietly. That was how she survived, by being quiet. The lecturer walked in and began class. Within minutes, questions were asked. Emily listened carefully, writing fast, absorbing everything. When the lecturer asked a difficult question, the hall fell silent. Emily hesitated. She knew the answer. Slowly, she raised her hand. The lecturer nodded. Yes, you. Emily stood. Her voice was calm, though her heart was pounding. She explained the concept clearly, step by step, connecting theory with real-world examples. When she finished, the lecturer smiled. Excellent answer. Very impressive. Murmurs spread across the room. Emily sat down quickly, heat rising to her face. That was the moment things changed. Not for the better. From that day, people noticed her, not with admiration, but resentment. Who does she think she is? She's always answering. Trying too hard. The whispers followed her through the hallways. The worst of it came from a group of wealthy girls who seemed to control the department socially. Sophie, Madeline, and Claire. They dressed flawlessly, spoke confidently, and never missed a chance to remind others where they came from. One afternoon, as Emily reviewed notes outside the lecture hall, Sophie walked past and stopped. You're the scholarship girl, right? Sophie asked loudly. Emily looked up. Yes. Sophie smiled thinly. Just remember, grades don't buy class. Her friends laughed as they walked away. Emily lowered her eyes and returned to her notes, pretending the words hadn't cut deep. At home, things were not easier. Emily lived in a small rented apartment with her mother, Laura Walker, who worked long shifts as a cleaner. Every night, Laura came home exhausted, but she always asked the same question. How was school today? Emily always answered the same way. Fine. She never mentioned the insults. Never mentioned the loneliness. She knew her mother already carried enough weight. But loneliness has a way of growing quietly. Weeks passed. Emily continued to top her class. She stayed late in the library, worked part-time tutoring junior students, and avoided social gatherings. She believed that if she stayed invisible long enough, people would stop targeting her. She was wrong. One afternoon, during a departmental seminar, a presentation group deliberately excluded Emily from the discussion. When she tried to contribute, Madeline interrupted her. We've already covered that, she said sharply. You can relax. Not everyone needs to overperform. Laughter followed. Emily's hands trembled slightly, but she stayed silent. That was when a calm voice spoke from the front row. "That's unfair." Every head turned. The voice belonged to Daniel Harper. Daniel Harper was impossible to ignore. He came from one of the wealthiest families connected to Westbridge University. His confidence was natural, not loud. His style was effortless. His presence alone commanded attention. And almost every girl in the department liked him. Some admired him openly. Some competed for his attention. Some simply watched from a distance. Daniel rarely spoke during class discussions unless necessary. But when he did, people listened. He turned toward Madeline. Emily was making a valid point. Cutting her off like that isn't right. The room went quiet. Madeline looked shocked. "I didn't mean." "It's okay," Daniel said calmly. "Let her finish." Emily looked up at him, stunned. For the first time since entering Westbridge University, someone had stood up for her. She finished her point, her voice steadier now. The lecturer nodded approvingly. After the seminar, whispers exploded. Why did Daniel defend her? Does he know her? What does he see in her? Emily packed her bag quickly, trying to leave unnoticed. But Daniel caught up with her outside. "Hey," he said gently. "You did really well in there." Emily blinked. "Thank you." There was a short silence. "I'm Daniel," he added, as if she didn't already know. "I know," Emily replied softly. "I'm Emily." Daniel smiled. "I figured." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Students passed by, stealing curious glances. Finally, Daniel said, "If you ever need a study partner, I'd like that." Emily hesitated. People like Daniel did not offer friendship to people like her. But something in his eyes was sincere. "I'll think about it," she said. As she walked away, Emily felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest. Not hope exactly, but the fragile beginning of it. She didn't know it yet, but that single moment would change the direction of her life. And it would also make her a target in ways she never imagined. After the seminar incident, Emily Walker could no longer pretend she was invisible. People noticed her now, not just because she was brilliant, but because Daniel Harper had noticed her first. At Westbridge University, attention from Daniel meant something. It was social currency. It was power. And it was dangerous. Emily felt it immediately. When she walked into lectures, conversations paused for half a second longer than usual. When she sat down, eyes followed. When she spoke, people listened, but not with kindness. With curiosity. With suspicion. Daniel, on the other hand, acted as though nothing had changed. He greeted her calmly when he saw her. Sometimes he waited for her after class. Other times, he simply walked beside her in silence, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. For Emily, it was not normal at all. She had spent her whole life learning how to stay unnoticed. Now, simply standing next to Daniel made her visible in ways she didn't know how to handle. One afternoon, Daniel found her in the library, surrounded by books. "You really like this place," he said quietly. Emily looked up, slightly startled. "It's peaceful." He nodded. "Mind if I sit?" She hesitated, then shook her head. They studied together that day. At first, it was awkward. Emily kept her answers short. Daniel watched more than he spoke. But slowly, something shifted. They began discussing theories, debating ideas, correcting each other. Daniel was smart, Emily had to admit that, but he lacked the raw hunger she had. He studied because it was expected. She studied because her future depended on it. Daniel noticed this. "You don't just study to pass," he said at some point. "You study like everything is on the line." Emily smiled faintly. "Because it is." That sentence stayed with him. Word spread quickly. Daniel and the scholarship girl are always together. She's definitely using him. He could do so much better. The girls in the department were especially bitter. Sophie stopped greeting Daniel altogether. Claire made passive-aggressive jokes. Madeline watched Emily with eyes that held quiet hostility. One day, as Emily entered the female restroom, she heard voices. Acting like she belongs. She should remember her background. Daniel is just being kind. He'll get tired. Emily froze. She waited until the voices faded before stepping inside. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her face looked calm, but her eyes told a different story. Do I belong here? She wondered. That evening, Daniel noticed she was distant. You've been quiet, he said as they walked out of class. I'm just tired, Emily replied. He stopped walking. Did someone say something to you? Emily shook her head quickly. No. Daniel studied her face. He didn't push, but something hardened quietly inside him. The bullying escalated subtly. Emily's name was removed from a group assignment without explanation. Someone spilled coffee on her notes and laughed. Anonymous comments appeared on a department forum, questioning how she really earned her grades. Emily carried it all alone. Until the night she broke down. She was in her room, surrounded by unfinished assignments, when her mother called. Emily, Laura said softly, are you eating well? Emily swallowed hard. Yes, Mum. There was a pause. You don't sound okay. That was all it took. Emily's voice cracked. I'm trying so hard, she whispered. I'm doing everything right, but they still hate me. Laura listened quietly, tears forming in her own eyes miles away. You don't need to be liked, she said gently. You need to survive. And you are doing that beautifully. Emily cried herself to sleep that night. The next morning, Daniel found her sitting alone outside the lecture hall. Come sit with me today, he said. Emily hesitated. Daniel, people are talking. He smiled faintly. Let them. That was the day he stopped pretending not to notice the bullying. By third year, Emily Walker had become a name no one could ignore. She ranked first consistently. Lecturers praised her openly. Younger students admired her. On paper, she was winning. But emotionally, she was exhausted. Daniel remained her quiet shield. Whenever someone mocked her, he intervened calmly. Whenever rumors spread, he shut them down without drama. He never fought. Never raised his voice. His presence alone was enough. And that made people angrier. Especially Madeline. Madeline came from a powerful family. She had always been admired. Always chosen. Always respected. Until Emily arrived. Until Daniel chose to sit beside someone else. The jealousy turned sharp. During final year, just weeks before exams, something happened that nearly destroyed Emily. She received an official email. You are hereby suspended pending investigation for academic misconduct. Emily stared at the screen, unable to breathe. Cheating. That was the accusation. Her hands shook as she read the message again and again. By the next morning, the rumor had spread across campus. She cheated. I knew she was pretending. Scholarship students always cut corners. Emily was summoned before a panel. She felt small sitting there, alone, surrounded by cold faces. They questioned her harshly. Where did you get this data? Who helped you? Why are your results so perfect? Emily answered calmly, though her heart was breaking. She had no proof. Only her integrity. When Daniel heard, he was furious. He requested to speak on her behalf. She didn't cheat, he said firmly. Anyone who knows Emily knows she works harder than anyone here. The panel was unmoved. But Daniel didn't stop there. He investigated. He traced files, compared timestamps, spoke to lecturers, and finally, the truth surfaced. Madeline had accessed Emily's work and manipulated records to make it appear suspicious. When confronted, Madeline broke. She confessed. The university acted quickly. Madeline was expelled. Emily's name was cleared. But the damage was already done. Emily returned to campus feeling hollow. People avoided her now, not out of hatred, but embarrassment. No one apologized. Daniel found her sitting on the same bench where they had first talked. "I'm tired," Emily said quietly. "I don't think I can keep doing this." Daniel sat beside her. "You don't have to be strong all the time," he said. She turned to him, eyes filled with tears. "I don't belong in your world," she whispered. "I never did." Daniel took a deep breath. "Then maybe," he said slowly, "my world is wrong." That was the moment everything changed between them. Not with a kiss. Not with a confession. But with truth. They loved each other. And they were both afraid. Graduation came quietly. There were no loud celebrations for Emily Walker, no group pictures filled with laughter, no parties that lasted until morning. She walked across the stage, collected her certificate, and smiled politely for the camera. First-class honors. Top of her department. Applause filled the hall, but Emily barely heard it. She searched the crowd. Daniel Harper was there, standing near the aisle, clapping with pride written clearly on his face. When their eyes met, he smiled, not the easy smile everyone else knew, but the soft one he reserved only for her. After the ceremony, they found each other outside the auditorium. "You did it," Daniel said. Emily nodded. "We did." They stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by classmates taking pictures, hugging, making promises they might never keep. Daniel broke the silence. "I got an offer," he said. "From my family company. They want me to start immediately." Emily's heart tightened. That's good. "And you?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "I got a research placement. In another country." Daniel blinked. "That's incredible." "It is," Emily agreed softly. "But it's far." Neither of them said the obvious truth. This was where paths usually separated. They tried to hold on. At first, they talked every day. Messages, calls, long conversations about small things. Emily described the pressure of her new environment, the accents, the expectations, the loneliness. Daniel talked about boardrooms, responsibility, and how strange it felt to suddenly matter in serious spaces. But distance is patient. It stretches silence slowly. Emily began to feel the old fear creeping back, the fear that had always followed her. "He belongs in a world of stability and privilege," she thought. "I belong in survival mode." She started replying less. Daniel noticed. "Are you pulling away?" he asked one night. Emily stared at the phone for a long time before answering. "I don't want to hold you back." The words hurt both of them. "You never held me back," Daniel said quietly. But Emily had already decided. She needed to become someone who deserved him, or let him go. So she chose silence. Months turned into years. Emily worked relentlessly. She failed some experiments. Lost funding once. Rebuilt again. She became respected, then known. Her name appeared in journals. She was invited to conferences. Success came. But it was lonely. Daniel watched from afar. He dated briefly, never seriously. No one compared. No one understood the quiet depth Emily had given him. He waited. Even when he told himself not to. One evening, as he sorted through old files, he found a notebook Emily had once forgotten in the library. Inside were her early dreams, written when she was still afraid. "I want to be enough." The words stayed with him. Then came the invitation. Westbridge University, 10-year alumni celebration. Emily almost declined. But something told her to go. When she walked back onto campus, everything felt smaller and heavier. She turned a corner near the Faculty of Science. And there he was. Daniel. Older. Calmer. Still unmistakably him. They stopped at the same time. "Emily," he said softly. "Daniel." For a moment, years collapsed into seconds. They talked. Awkwardly at first. Then, honestly. They spoke about life, regret, growth, and the things they never said. Emily finally whispered, "I was scared." Daniel nodded. "I know. I thought love had rules," she said. He smiled gently. "It doesn't." That night, they walked the same path they once did as students. No fear this time. No shame. Only truth. The reunion did not end that night. After the alumni celebration, Emily and Daniel found reasons to keep talking. At first, it was simple things, a message in the morning, a short call at night. Then longer conversations followed. Conversations that went deeper than memories and reached into wounds they had never fully healed. One evening, as they sat in a quiet cafe near campus, Emily finally said what had lived inside her for years. "I thought I had to become perfect before I deserved love," she said softly. "I thought if I was strong enough, smart enough, successful enough, then I wouldn't be a burden." Daniel looked at her, his expression steady but full of emotion. "You were never a burden," he said. "You were the bravest person I knew." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "For so long, I believed silence was safety," she continued. "But all it did was make me lonely." Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. "This time," he said gently, "don't disappear." She nodded. "I won't." From that moment, they chose honesty. They rebuilt slowly, without fear, without rushing, without hiding. Emily introduced Daniel to her world, not as someone trying to prove herself, but as a woman proud of her journey. Daniel introduced Emily to his world, not as someone he needed to protect, but as someone he respected deeply. Their love grew quietly, strongly. No one questioned it this time. They were older. Grounded. Sure. One afternoon, Daniel invited Emily to the old bench near the Faculty of Science, the place where everything had begun. "I kept coming back here," he admitted. "Even when you were gone." Emily smiled sadly. "I wish I had known." Daniel knelt. "Not for show. Not for approval. For truth." "Emily Walker," he said, his voice steady. "I fell in love with you because you were brilliant, kind, and unbreakable, even when the world tried to silence you. Will you marry me?" Emily laughed through her tears. "Yes," she said. 1,000 times yes. Their wedding was not extravagant. It was honest. Emily's mother cried openly as she watched her daughter walk down the aisle, not as the poor scholarship girl, but as a woman who had earned her place in every room she entered. Daniel held Emily's hands and whispered, "We made it." She smiled. "We always were." Years later, Emily returned to Westbridge University, not as a student, but as a guest speaker. She stood before young women who looked like she once did, scared, hopeful, uncertain. She told them her story. Not about bullying. Not about wealth. But about courage. About speaking. About choosing love without shame. And somewhere in the audience, Daniel watched her, still standing up for her, not with words, but with presence. The girl they tried to silence became the woman who spoke. And the man everyone wanted chose the woman who needed no permission to shine. They didn't just survive Westbridge University. They built a life beyond it. Together.